Welcome to today's Seidokan Saturday, and happy day after Christmas. So, last of the stretching types. We talked about static stretching, which is where the agonist and antagonist, both the muscles on either side of the stretching muscle, are relaxed, and you use a separate body part, pulling with one arm to stretch the other, pressing your upper body to stretch the leg, etc. Passive static stretching to increase flexibility, allow yourself time to relax 30 seconds or so in each stretched position before going any further. Second type was dynamic stretching, where we use an agonist muscle to stretch the antagonist. I use my quad and hip flexors to stretch the hamstring, or I use my pectoralis major to stretch my posterior deltoids. I use my rhomboids, trapezius, and posterior deltoids to stretch the pecs, and we do this in a moving fashion, okay? With or without momentum, which creates ballistic stretching, another form of dynamic stretching. Covered those in the last two Saturdays. Today, the most advanced of them, proprioceptive neurological facilitation. Now, these are the three general categories. Again, they can be combined and mixed and used in a variety of ways. Proprioceptive neurological facilitation relies on overriding your body's own sensory mechanisms. So I kind of introduced this a little bit, but just to review, you have proprioceptors in your muscles and tendons. You have the Golgi tendon organ, which says, hey, this muscle is getting too tight, because the muscle being 10 to 20 times stronger than the tendon, if the muscle tightens too hard or too fast, that puts the tendon at risk. And the tendon will resist then by trying to relax and force the muscle to relax rather than tense. That's one proprioceptor. It's an internal sensory organ. The second, which is the one we're using with proprioceptive neurological facilitation, or PNF stretching, is the muscle spindle, and it's actually a little neurological signal that runs parallel to the muscle fiber, whatever muscle you're working. It runs parallel to that fiber, and it tells you if the muscle is getting stretched too fast and will force it to relax. So what we do is we kind of override that signal, and I talked a little bit about that with the dynamic stretching of creating a feedback loop. In the same way that you can't tickle yourself, your body senses its position in space relative to itself, and so we're going to override that. And basically what that involves is a series of static stretch for a moment, total relaxation, and then after your 10, 15, 30 seconds of relaxed in position, and I feel a slight stretch. This room is very cold this morning. I don't have a lot of heat in my dojo and the floor's cold, so this already is stretching me. So I place it in that stretch position, allow it 30 seconds or so to relax. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to make you sit there and watch me for 30 seconds, although I've probably already been talking that long. Then I'm going to use my agonist muscle, the muscle actually being stretched, I'm going to use in the stretched position and apply 5 to 10 seconds of isotonic or isometric pressure. So I use my muscles in my leg to push down against the bar for 5 or 10 seconds, and then relax, and I can go a little bit further. And that allows me to override the signal that said, hey, you're stretching too fast, which is why I felt the tightness. So I respond to the stretching by contracting the muscle intentionally in that isometric contraction, put pressure on it, and that forces the muscle spindle to go, oh, you're going to tighten the muscle so I don't have to worry about it, and then it relaxes and you go a little further. I wouldn't do this more than 2 or 3 times in the series. So now I'm going to push again, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax, and it allows me to stretch a little bit further. Now, because I am actually working this muscle, just like if I did a bunch of push-ups or a heavy bench press or a squat, it will make my muscles sore. So this is not something I would do daily, but it is a way to, if you do it on a regular basis, just like you would your weight training every other day, give yourself time to recover and rest. Then at the end of that, I'm going to use the antagonist and change it to the agonist. I'm going to use my hip flexors to actually lift and try to hold that position for a moment on my own. And that sort of sets the stretch, if you will. Now there are a variety of ways you can do that. You can sit in a straddle stretch against the wall, or we could do this on the floor where I go into my straddle position and I go down to a position where I'm stretching and I feel that stretch for a minute, and then I'm going to squeeze with my adductors, my inner thighs. I'm going to squeeze in and down for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I relax, and allows me to slide out just a little bit further. So we can do that on the floor. We can do it on a bar. If you have one of the stretching machine chairs, a great place to do that for your adductor complex. We apply that same principle to any muscle group that we want to stretch. Typically, this requires a very cooperative and guided partner, so that they would lift my leg and then hold it while I press down against them, and then they would push a little further when I release. You have to do that very carefully if you're working with a partner, because it's easy to over push. So communication, working together, very important when you're doing that with a partner. I should have gotten a belt or something, but presuming that I'm my own partner here, I can set myself against the wall, bring this up in the stretch position, and then push down. It's a little bit harder with this, and then come a little higher, and so forth, continuing in through the stretch. So a variety of ways to do it, but it's basically relax in a static stretch, apply pressure using only the muscle that you are trying to stretch. You actually tighten the muscle you're trying to stretch. That's the dichotomy. And then you relax and allow it to go a little bit further in its range of motion. So with my shoulder here, same thing. I would come to where I feel the stretch across the pec, and then I'm going to push this way. So pushing forward as if I'm trying to bring my arm around to the front, and tighten for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I can move over and create a little bit longer stretch. Again, I am using isometric contractions. It will, in the stretched position, it will make your muscles sore possibly the next day, and so that's where then the dynamic warm up and getting the blood flow, etc. Okay? Hopefully that helps. Static, dynamic, and proprioceptive neurological facilitation. PNF stretching can be done if you leave enough space after it. Before a workout, you can do the PNF stretching, but then you make sure that you go through a dynamic warm-up in addition to the PNF afterwards. Just like if you did static stretching before a class, even though it's suboptimal, if you do that, but then get up and do some light dynamic warm-up and dynamic stretching. So if I sit in the splits for a long time, or sit in the straddle for a long time on the floor, then when I get up, I still need to go through some dynamic movement before I actually go into any explosive kind of a situation. Otherwise, I'm not doing myself any favors, okay? Hopefully that's instructive, and those are your 3 main ways of increasing flexibility and mobility. Practice them regularly, incorporate them even just small bits in your daily routine. I heard a great saying that said, if it's worth doing halfway. Usually you hear if it's worth doing all the way. But if brushing my teeth for 2 minutes is good, and I brush my teeth only for 1 minute, there's still a benefit, okay? If doing 20 push-ups is good, but I only do 10, at least I did something. So anything worth doing is worth doing halfway. If you don't have time to do a full stretch routine or a full workout, do something. Do a little bit, because a little bit on a regular basis is always better than nothing. Thanks for joining another Seidokan Saturday. Hope you're having a great Christmas weekend. And until next week, keep practicing.